All right, today we are tackling a real puzzle, one that's all about identity, politics, and a whole lot of history. We're talking about one single state, but four separate nations. So let's dive right in. I mean, think about it. How can four nations be one country? It sounds kind of contradictory, right? You've got England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, each one with its own unique identity, its own flag, its own history, and yet they're all part of this one thing we call the United Kingdom. So, how on earth does that actually work? Well, for the millions of people who actually live there, this isn't some abstract political science question. It's just daily life. It's their reality. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the fascinating story of how this unique setup came to be, how it all holds together today, and really, what it tells us about what a country can even be.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the UK today, you've got to go back in time. This union didn't just pop into existence overnight. Nope, it was built, piece by piece, over hundreds of years. And the political and strategic reasons for building it back then, they still have a huge impact today.
So let's walk through it. The whole process really kicks off way back in the 1500s, when Wales is formally brought into the Kingdom of England. Then you get this huge pivotal moment in 1707. The kingdoms of Scotland and England, longtime rivals, decide to unite and form Great Britain. And then finally, in 1801, Ireland is joined to that union, and that's when you get the United Kingdom as we know it. Now, of course, it's super important to remember that most of Ireland later broke away to become its own independent country, which is a whole other story. And this really gets to a key idea. While there was definitely conflict, no doubt about that, the UK wasn't forged in the fire of conquest in the way you might think. It was formally created through a series of political mergers. Think of them like massive corporate takeovers, but for countries. They were called Acts of Union, and they were basically parliamentary deals that tied these very different nations together under one crown and one government in London. So for a long, long time, this idea of a single, unified British identity was the main story. But then the 20th century happened, and with it came this powerful comeback, a resurgence of those distinct national voices. People in Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland started to say, hey, wait a minute, we have our own cultures, our own histories, our own way of doing things, and we want that to be recognized. Take Wales, for example. The fight there was powerfully tied to its language. The Welsh language was genuinely at risk of dying out, but this incredibly passionate movement rose up to save it. And that fight for language became the absolute cornerstone for reasserting a modern Welsh identity, something totally distinct from the English-dominated Britishness. Now, up in Scotland, it was a slightly different story. Culture was definitely part of it, for sure, but the main engine driving things was a push for more political power. The argument was simple but powerful. Decisions that only affect Scotland should be made in Scotland, not hundreds of miles away in London. And that led to this growing call to bring back their own Scottish Parliament, which had been dissolved way back when the Union was formed in 1707. And then you have Northern Ireland, which, wow, that's a whole other level of complexity. Their identity is tangled up with the biggest question of all. Which country do you belong to? You have two main communities. On one side, Unionists who are mostly Protestant and see themselves as British. On the other, nationalists who are mostly Catholic and see themselves as Irish. So for them, identity isn't just about culture or language, it's about a fundamental allegiance. It's about whether you want to be part of the UK or part of a united Ireland. So you've got these powerful national movements all pulling in different directions. The big question became, how do you keep a country like this from flying apart? Well, in the late 1990s, the UK tried a bold political experiment designed to find a new kind of balance. The solution? A single word: devolution. Okay, so what exactly is devolution? It's really important to get this right. It is not independence, not at all. Think of it like this. The main UK Parliament in London says, okay, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, you can handle your own business on certain things. So they transfer or devolve power over stuff like healthcare and education to new parliaments in those nations. The big exception, by the way, is England. It's the only one that doesn't have its own separate parliament. And what's so fascinating is that devolution isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. Just look at this table. You can see that things like health and education are devolved everywhere. That means Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland each run their own healthcare systems, their own schools. But then check out justice. Scotland and Northern Ireland have power over that, but Wales doesn't. This just goes to show how the whole system was tailor-made to fit the specific demands and history of each individual nation.
But, and this is a big but, the really big-ticket items, the stuff that affects the entire country, are kept or reserved for the UK-wide government. We're talking about things like national security and defense, immigration, foreign policy, the Constitution itself. This is the glue that holds it all together. It means that even though the nations can do their own thing on a lot of issues, when it comes to the rest of the world, they still act as one single country.
And all of this brings us right up to today. The UK is in this constant state of navigating a really delicate balance, right? It's a tug of war between the unified kingdom on one side and its very distinct nations on the other. You see, devolution didn't solve the identity puzzle or end the debate, not by a long shot. It just gave everyone a new rulebook for how to have that debate.
So what does that look like in practice? It means you have the UK government in London, and then you have count them, three other powerful governments operating at the same time. You've got one in Edinburgh for Scotland, one in Cardiff for Wales, and one in Belfast for Northern Ireland. And they are all busy making their own laws for their own people.
And that brings us to the most important takeaway of this whole explainer. The UK isn't what we'd normally call a nation state, like, say, France, where you have one big dominant national identity. No, a much better way to think about it is as a state of nations. It's a single country, a single state that was specifically designed to be a home for multiple distinct nations, each with its own sense of self, its own culture, and its own institutions. So, where does that leave us? Well, with a huge question, really. Is this a permanent union, set in stone forever, or is it slowly changing into something else, maybe a more flexible partnership where each nation can choose its own path?